In this video, I'll be telling you guys tips you could do in shooting range or in game to improve or have a better aim. So if you're struggling to get better aim, make sure to watch the entire video so that you start beaming people in game. Now that 6v6 team deathmatch is a permanent game mode, you can practice your aim so much faster now since 6v6 team deathmatch doesn't have a live counter unlike Strikeout. And speaking of Strikeout is a good way to practice your skill against other people. However, today's video is not about improving your skills by your aim, so the best game mode for you to train your aim against real people is team deathmatch. This way you have more time to practice your aim since there is no objective or live counter. All you have to do is kill people, and that is a good way for you to train your aim. Another thing you could do while playing 6v6 team deathmatch is trying out different guns so that you can get better at them. I talked about how mastering your weapons in Rogue Company is pretty handy because you're familiar with the gun you're using with, and that can give you the advantage. And while you're at it mastering weapons, you might as well try out different rogues so that you can pick whichever rogue fits for you. So if you're having trouble getting better aim, try out 6v6 team deathmatch because it gives you that experience on how to get better aim against real people. And once again, pick 6v6 team deathmatch over Strikeout because Strikeout is more about skill and strategy than 6v6 team deathmatch. Moving on to our next step, and that is recoil control. The recoil control for Rogue Company isn't really complicated like Rust or Rainbow Six Siege. However, I still recommend you learning the recoil pattern for the guns in the game. This is also one of the reasons why mastering weapons in the game is pretty handy. Learning the recoil pattern for most of the guns in the game isn't really time consuming since the recoil is pretty easy to control. However, once you start using them from mid to long range, it can start getting harder. So a good way for you to practice your recoil control is going to shooting range and pick a rogue and weapon that you normally use and start firing and see if you can control the recoil. I recommend you using a rogue that has the perk replenish instead so that you don't have to worry about reloading. A good rogue for this job is Ronin since she has two of the best weapons in the game and the perk replenish. So if you have done your challenges and have a spare time to yourself, make sure to practice your recoil control in their shooting range. Even though melees got a nerf quite a long time ago, you can still one-tap with them depending on what melee you're using. Knowing this fact, it is pretty handy to have one in game so that you can easily get that one kill in a tough spot. There are two practices you could do in the shooting range to practice your melee throws, but first you need to learn which melees are able to one-tap with upgrades and which one to avoid. The first practice you need to do to improve your melee throws, and that is learning the time to kill of the weapon so that you can predict throw these melees on where the enemies are going. If you didn't know, melees will take time to hit the target and have a drop off, meaning the melee will gradually go down because of gravity. So to practice this, go to the shooting range and practice how long the melee will take to the target. Just so you know, there are some melees that have upgrades to improve throwing speed, so keep that in mind. You'll only use the melees from close to maybe mid range, so make sure to train those time to kill and the range you need to throw it at from close to mid range in the shooting range. And the last practice you need to do to improve your melee throws, and that is jump shot. From my previous tips guide, I talked about how jump shotting people are pretty useful, especially with the melee. So in this practice, you need to get up close and practice those jump shots just like in this video. This way you can practice this 50-50 situation and turn them into you winning. This is also pretty useful when there is a camper on a corner since they can't do anything about a one-top melee coming to them unless you miss. Practicing these melees will improve your aim because it trains you how to track your enemies from close range, and we all know that close range is most likely a 50-50 situation, and you want to turn that to a 100-0 situation, meaning you're winning those close range fights. This tip that I'll be telling you is something you should be training the most because most of the time everyone is moving, and if you can't track pretty well, you just end up missing your shots. So if you don't want to miss those shots, you'll have to practice them. And I have two practices you can do in the shooting range to improve them. First is the regular tracking. If you go to the right side of the shooting range, there are two AIs running, and you're going to be using the AI that is running back and forth and not the one running in circle. All you have to do is track the AI and no need to shoot. You'll have to practice this for your aiming down sight and your hip fire. If you're lagging behind or moving way too fast, I have a video for you on how you can change that. Once you get the hang of it, you'll want to go back to the left side of the shooting range and do this following. Aim down sight to an AI, whichever one you want, and then stop aiming down if you're a controller user, or stay aiming down if you're a mouse and keyboard user, and quickly go to a different AI. This might sound confusing, but if you watch the video that I'm showing you right now, it should be clear and easy. This practice that I told you practices on how quickly you can change the target. This is very helpful when you kill your first target and now going for a different target in a short amount of time. With this practice, you might have to play around with your sensitivity again. This is pretty obvious, and this is also a tip that I like to talk about in my aiming tips, because if you don't have a perfect sensitivity for you, then it's gonna be hard for you to get better aim. And luckily I have a video specifically for that, so if you want to check it out, it'll be on the description below or in the card section at the top right corner. If you do all these tips that I told you, it will make your aim so much better. But of course, if you want to make that even better, I have an advanced aiming tips video that I made, and it's on the screen right now. Or if you just want to improve yourself overall, I have a video for that too. I also have a playlist for tips and tricks for Rogue Company. It's gonna be at the description below. But anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video.